When I started my first garden, one of the first things that I planted was blueberry bushes. We planted 4 that first year, and I've added 2 more since then. And as you can tell, these blueberry bushes have grown so well, and over the years we've harvested buckets full. We've had them fresh, we freeze them, we take them to the farmer's market and sell them. We have so many. And so I realized I have really good soil for growing blueberries. When Southern Living contacted me and asked me to test out a couple of different varieties of their blueberry bushes, I was excited to be able to do this. I grow rabbit eye blueberries, being in the southeastern US, and they are really good for warmer climates. They don't require as many chill hours, and they just produce so well, and they're delicious. So I've got 2 different blueberry bushes here, one here and then one a little bit further away that we're going to test in the garden this year. And the first one is called Bless Your Heart, which I think is perfect for a good old southern garden. And the other one is called Takes the Cake. So when they sent these to me, I looked around to try to decide where do I want to plant these blueberries in my garden, and I ended up coming here where our dog runs and we have a fence, so we don't have to worry about deer right here. And I've already planted other plants here, 3 elderberry bushes, and then there's a fig tree also from Southern Living down at the corner that I just planted. So I think this would be a good place for planting these blueberry bushes. Now, ideally, I would want to test the soil because blueberries require an acidic soil, but because I have done soil tests before and I know that generally my land is a little bit on the acidic side, I'm just going to skip the soil test this time, but I'm also going to amend the area with plenty of peat moss, which is very acidic as it is, and it's a good medium for blueberries to grow in. So let's get to planting these 2 bushes. Even though I feel like we have a good start with the soil that we already have on the property for the blueberry bushes, because even with the other ones that I didn't add a lot to the soil when I planted. I still would like to add a little bit to get them started and to get them established well. So what I'm going to do with this planting is I am going to mix an equal blend of peat moss, which is typically has a pH of about 4. And so that will be a good way to make sure that I have a good acidity level for the blueberries. And then I also have a mixture of compost that I will be adding into this mixture as well. But before I add this to the soil, I'm going to moisten the peat moss just a bit, because peat moss will retain moisture well, but it has a hard time getting saturated to begin with. So I'm going to go ahead and just moisten this peat moss a little bit ahead of time, and then I will mix in the peat moss and the compost before adding it to the soil. Okay, so we've got most of this mixed up and moistened. The last ingredient I'm going to add is a product called Harvest Gold, and this is a silica product that adds really a lot of benefits, especially when it comes to soil structure and moisture retention. That's the main reason I'm adding it to these, because I don't have an irrigation system hooked up to these trees or these bushes, and our land typically keeps a lot of water, but in drought times, I think having a little bit of extra help with the moisture retention will definitely help. So I'm adding about half of this 15-pound bag to this mixture, which will work for 2 different blueberry plants. This has the consistency of playground sand, but it's very, very soft. Maybe more like beach sand, actually. So I love working with it. I'm gonna go ahead and mix it in pretty well before we add it to the planting area. Okay, so we have this area here that I went ahead and cleared of the grass. And for both of these areas for the bushes, I'll add half of this mixture, and then we'll mix it down to about a depth of maybe 6 to 12 inches or so before we plant the bush. You see some grass clippings there. That's because we just mowed, so I figured more nitrogen. First year blueberries don't really need any supplemental fertilizer, but after the first year, they can benefit from nitrogen being added. I'm going to add the rest of them to the other one. Blueberry roots are very shallow, so that's why we're doing a little bit larger of an area, because they'll tend to grow out, but then toward the top of the soil. And this will give them plenty of good material to work with as they grow out like that. All right, now it's time to plant the bush. And the challenge I'm running into with this particular spot, which I figured I would, is we're so close to that pine tree. There's pine roots right here. So it'll be interesting to see if the growth between the two is going to be any different, because there wasn't as much when I cleared the other one. Blueberry bushes need to be planted at container depth, so it doesn't need to be any lower than what it is now. It doesn't need to be too much higher. Looks like that's about right. So I'm going to start out with giving it a good water before I plant it. Then I'm going to fill the hole with water. The trick my mom always taught me with planting flowers, but I think it's important for other plants as well. Make sure those roots have good water to be able to get to when they're transplanted. Looks like this one is not root bound. It's looking really good. The roots look very healthy. So I think we are planting this at the perfect time. You know what, I think I'm going to add a little bit more soil, because I think this is going to settle a little bit, and I don't want the blueberry bush to be lower than the regular soil. So I'm going to add a little bit more back to it. Raise up just a little bit more. I think that's about right. Okay, I think it's looking good. I'm going to give it one final water, and then we don't have our wood chips here for the year yet, but whenever we do get it, I will cover this in wood chips as a mulch. They've done really great for my other blueberry plants, so I'll do the same here. A lot of people ask me about the spacing between blueberry bushes, and with my original bushes, I wish I would have spaced them out a little bit further, because as you saw, they grow to be pretty large and it's hard to get in between the two. The Bless Your Heart and the Takes the Cake blueberries are not supposed to grow as tall or as wide, but the reason that I have this spacing here, it's about 10 feet, is because we mow around this area and my husband wanted to make sure to get in between the bushes. If I had just one area with blueberry bushes here like I have in my original area, I would probably space them maybe about 5 feet apart just to be able to get plenty of room in between. But for these two, 10 feet is a perfect spacing. There's still plenty of room for bees to be able to get in between the blossoms because they'll cross-pollinate each other, and there's room to mow around. So that's why we chose the spacing the way we did. These two bushes, both the Bless Your Heart and the Takes the Cake, they are expected to grow to about 4 to 5 feet in height. And they also are good for zones 7 through 9, which is good, especially if you're in zone 9. Sometimes it's hard to find a blueberry that will work for your zone because blueberries require chill hours, which basically means it needs a cold period. So this would be a good option if you're in a warmer climate. And in my experience, the rabbitite blueberries are just so fun to grow. So if you live in an area where you're in zone 7 through 9, you're looking for maybe a little bit smaller of a blueberry, then I would recommend taking a look at the Bless Your Heart and the Takes the Cake and see how they do for you.